Boy, is it dark when you get here really early. Put the spotlight on. Look how dark it is in here. My goodness gracious. How you doing? Thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you're here. Hope you're doing well. I'm Jimmy. We're making it work, and we're in a really dark shop, getting this place open up, watching our own videos to make sure they look good to you guys. And I got every green light at every intersection this morning, so I got here even like 10 minutes earlier just because of the lights. So we're gonna go ahead and get this place open up and get started spending a day in the shop. Let's go out and take a look at the weather. Maybe we can catch a little sunrise action. Boom, look at that thing out there. That is beautiful. I think Kyle's putting a starter in this Nissan. Gotta take the intake off to do it. Bill's working on the Ford Sport Track, Explorer Sport Track. We have got quite a beautiful morning out this morning. 65, 66 degrees. Beautiful sunrise behind me. What a way to start the day. Even if you're not working today and you're fortunate enough to be at home, I hope you're at least sitting on the porch with a nice cup of coffee, watching the sun come up. Most of the time, a lot of people tell me, watching Jimmy make it work, drinking a cup of coffee starting my day, which that's really awesome. I love hearing that. But even if you're watching it later in the day, as long as you torque the like button before you leave, that's the most important thing, even if the video sucked. Back on the old Sebring. This is a 2017 Ford Escape, the pinnacle of American luxury. If you saw those clips, you know what's going to happen. I don't know. I got front end work to finish on the Sebring. I got front end work to do on a Dodge Warlock. I've got headlights to do on a Mercedes coming in today. The lady's neighbor is going to pay for it, apparently. You need headlights if you're going to drive. But why people insist on driving these old European cars when they don't have any money, I don't get it. Get yourself a nice Corolla or Accord or Civic or something. They're a little more expensive used, but they're way more reliable and less expensive to fix when they do break, and they do break. Let's finish getting this place opened up, start horsing around, try to learn a thing or two and have some fun. What do you say? Let's do it. Stay tuned. All right, back on the old Sebring, and I had to get this bolt out of here, so I used my pole jack, big heavy duty one, and raised this up about a ½ inch, as much as the training mount would let me, so I could jiggle this around and barely fit this bolt out of here. You could lower the subframe too if you don't have this kind of a stand, and lower the subframe that little bit, but it barely fits out of there. Kind of has to go in the back and in the front at the same time, although it's not really possible. It's still what you're trying to do. There you go. I don't want to tighten that one all the way yet until I get the front bushing bolt in. When I'm on the alignment rack, I'll loosen that back up a ½ a turn or so and tighten it again. Like I've mentioned in other suspension videos, that sleeve and the inside of the bushing wants to be at ride height so it can deflect up and down. If it's bound up one way or the other, shortens the life of the bushing. Just for those who might not know. Look at that like that. I guess this is the bolt that came with it got lost. On the other side, I took the whole thing apart at the same time, but it was a little bit of a pain holding this up and hoping that nothing would happen binding up the axle and stuff. So on this side, I decided to do the lower arm first. That way it's supporting all this while I do the strut and the upper separately. I also relieve this sway bar mount or anti-roll bar mount to make it a little easier to get the arm out of here. just two 15s and an 18, and it's easier to put this in before you put this before you put the wishbone back in. It's easier to do the sway bar and access this nut with it out of the way. This one goes in the back, and this one goes up here. Uh-oh. Man, that magnet is badass. Towing it out of here, trading it in for a new car after we gave him a big estimate. It has a major problem, transmission or something. I think one of the other guys looked at it. They said, no, we found someone that will take it on a trade with the blown up transmission. That's the second one in a couple weeks. All right, got my ball joint tight, cotter pin, got my I guess that's a We Make Weak ball joints bracket. It's actually really sturdy. It's not just sheet metal, it's thicker. It's like 14 or 16 gauge or something. So I'm guessing it's for when the stud comes loose. If it's not supposed to do that. Now I'm going to take this out of here as an assembly like I did on the other side. I got my hose. I like to take this bolt out so it doesn't stress the hose and all that. But I think it's definitely easier doing the lower arm first. So we'll try to remember that when we do another one of these in 5 or 10 years. If you didn't see yesterday's video, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, I'm going to do a controlled drop last bolt. I'll use my opposite hand to hold the weight and slowly let it descend so as not to damage the axle boot. Not worried about the part at all because it's getting replaced. Stripping back on. That's pretty clean, should go right on. I'm going to put it in before I mess with any of this, hooking this up, just because it's less things in your way. I'm not going to hook it to the strut yet. I just want to do it like that, get everything lined up, then I can lift it onto the strut. Now I could, someone on, like, I watch a lot of Sarah Antoon's videos because she's funny and she does good work, but not realistic work, although it's entertaining. And she puts out an awesome show. And somebody was in there commenting saying, I wish all mechanics could work like you, Sarah. And I'm like, well, you probably don't, because she'll make $150 worth of labor into $1,000. Because you can't spend that kind of time working on simple repairs like this. Like, she would polish all this stuff and bead blast it and paint it, let it dry before she... So it would take 3 hours to do something that's supposed to take 30 minutes. Just something to think about. I don't think a lot of people consider that kind of stuff. You're supposed to do a good job, thorough, not leave things loose, etc. But the polishing and detailing stuff isn't part of the flat rate repair world. Not even on commission, you wouldn't even do that kind of stuff. Maybe for a show car or a YouTube channel. It'll tap up with a hammer the rest of the way once this is all buttoned up. And with the help of my trusty assistant, Mr. Wood, Mr. Blocko Wood, I'm going to not flip that over. Focus. That's a shame. These bushing bolts are so tight, I can't loosen them easily. It looks awkward because it is. With the help of my assistant, I can reposition the wrench now and get more bite to get it down on this. And I'm going to push up on the lower arm too. Since it's not connected to the strut, it's kind of hanging. That's what the blue stand is for. Got my little blue stand under here. just holding up the suspension arm about an inch or so. So now it's close, and I can pull down with my wrench warranty checker from JDT Co. and get this in here to get a nut started. The strut came with this tiny little silver nut. The factory nut is twice the size. I'm going to reuse the factory nut. That's the kind of on the fly decision you got to make. I took them all off, all of them except that one. 2 over. Very important to get it up against that shoulder. That's the only way the bolt's going to fit through. Butterfingers. Now, you can actually pull down on the suspension to get the bolt in if the stars are all aligned. This bolt has serrates. I don't know if those show up for you, but it actually kind of presses into that knuckle bracket, so you got to press it back in. Now if the notch in the strut wasn't lined up, that bolt wouldn't go in there like that. So 18 on the nut, 15 on the bolt. This doesn't have any serrating on the bolt, so it's not pressed into the knuckle. Now what you're doing is squeezing this. There's a slot in this bracket, like a clamp, and this is so high up that it couldn't come off if it loosened, but it would make noise and stuff like that. Plus it's scary when suspension stuff isn't right. So good and tight is what I'm saying. There's a torque spec, basically 2 ooga-doogas. You can't over crush the housing. So if you're not certain, look it up. Probably 35 to 40 foot-pounds, I would guess, but I've always done them that way and never had a problem. Double check all our bolts. I got my caliper bolts, lower ball joints tight, upper ball joints not done yet. Still got to do that. 21 on that. What I do is when this feels tight, I go to the next slot for the cotter pin. Now, some of my videos you might have seen customers that put their own ball joints in and tighten that nut finger tight and put the cotter pin in. Nope, don't do that. You have to compress the taper into the other mating surface, the mating part. The taper's got to actually be pressed in, where afterwards you could take this nut off and it'll stay in place. You can't pull it out. So it gets to that point, and then you go to the next hole, so you know you got it good and tight. It's not going anywhere. Again, there's a torque spec for it if you're not sure. Something like this thing is plenty tight. Same with the pinch bolt here, all of those things. Caliper bracket bolts. Torque specs go by bolt size and the bolt length. They're almost always the same based on the bolt size. The reason torquing is important on critical components is because a bolt's maximum strength is when it just starts to stretch. That's when a bolt does the best. It's weaker if it's loose or too tight, but just when it starts to stretch, almost like a spring, but not quite. It's in 1/1000th of an inch. That bolt stretches a little bit, it has maximum clamping force. Moving on, I'm gonna get the wheel on here. I'm gonna torque all the wheels when I'm done with all 4. We'll put the hubcaps on after that. We're going on to the back. I always take all my hardware. This is the old upper ball joint. This is actually from the lower, and this is the new nut that came with the parts. I take everything off the lift, make sure if I see a nut on the lift, in my mind, I didn't put something on. But I see a lot of guys don't worry too much about it. I see bolts and nuts all over the floor and stuff, but the way I know I didn't forget anything and I have peace of mind, I'm making sure this stuff's not laying around. The back struts are shocks. 2 bolts go up into the car. I gotta look and see if it's in the convertible well. There's 2 plastic little push pins that hold the wheel liner to it. 1 bolt nut on the bottom. should be a piece of cake. We got to take the brake hose bracket off too. 10 millimeter, 15, and I believe they're 15s up top. Ow. I mean your forearm. Yeah, watch your forearm. That's what I meant. You know what I mean. It's corroded, that's why. And I mentioned before too, sometimes I don't take the time to do it, shame on me, but if you spray a little PB Blaster or WD-40 on these plastic pins, they'll work a little easier for you. And I've mentioned in other videos where they use these things, do not ever spin the impact and try to hold this with your fingers, because this becomes a Ginsu knife. Ask me how I know. No, don't ask. To get to these rear shock mounts, they say it's from the trunk. So maybe it is. Doesn't look like it, but oh, look, I feel something. Ooh, they're way in there. When you look at it from this way, they're right here. I thought it was going to be from the top, but I took my shoes off, climbed in there, no such luck. Wish that was shut all the way. So I think I can kind of push carpeting out of my way and get my hand in there. That's what we're going to try. Well, there's a ways in there. The shape of the trunk is so odd. I can barely reach the back bolt. I'm thinking if I might have to pull all the carpet out of the top well, I can probably get to it from there easier. Pulling that all out of there is not, it pays 0.7 per shock, so it's funny. It's funny. Not funny like funny like now I'm guessing too they'll use a lock nut, so it'll be tight all the way off. There's about 4 inches of threads. We'll see. It feels like it might be loosening up. All right, yeah, that's cool. Nice. That was the easy one. Rear shock assembly, access through trunk. Well, I'm here to say fibber, because when you go through the trunk, that's what you're trying to reach. You get it from inside the car. I mean, they don't know how to fix their own vehicles, I guess. So, in any event, we're gonna get it. Not that bad, really. Other than the moaning and complaining. It's 4 plastic clips, 4 Phillips screws, and this comes out of the way. Not bad at all. Should be a matter of getting the load off of this thing. There you go. I'm gonna need the pry bar to go back together. Now this is identical left to right, except for the brake hose bracket. So that's got to face to the back. Watch the paint. Especially on a car that's clean. We don't want any problems. Now, let me get it in the top now. First, use the suspension will hold it up for me. Don't worry about the dust shield on the brakes, I'll fix it. Make sure that's not touching. I'm going to go inside and get the top mounted up. Now, you might notice I'm putting the bolt in backwards. Well, in my opinion, it's the correct way, because the arm's in the way here. There's no arm over here, so you got plenty of room. I can't explain how they make these kinds of decisions, but to me it seems obvious to do it the other way. And like I say, you see an engineer, especially a modern vehicle engineer, give them a hug for me, because I think they're angry and they don't get enough love. I know you engineers that are watching. I'm just having fun. Relax. It's all right. The problem is they get constrained and they can only do so much as well. So, like a mechanic, they got to do what they got to do to make it work. Can't do much about it. That's right. I'm going to take you to the bank, Governor Trent. You can put it on the first thread like this. Last but not least, the pièce de résistance, to see if we can get the screw in there. It's not threaded, it's like a sheet metal screw, and it doesn't fit perfectly, as you might expect with aftermarket junk, parts. So we're gonna do what we gotta do to get this to work. And not just because that's what we named the channel, but it's what we've been doing for decades. Making aftermarket stuff fit. Ah! It's hard to find on a gray floor. Found it. Gravity check. It goes in here somewhere. Hardest part of the job, apparently. This tab is not even close to being right. I had to bend the ear on the bracket out so I can get it further in to get close to the hole. Then I gotta force the threads to thread. It's gonna be fine, don't worry. I thought I had shut the camera off in that last clip, but I didn't. Primary camber and primary toe. When they say primary, they mean it changes both, but more one than the other. Show you what we got here. We got a mess. That's all right. We'll get this camber, and then we'll do the toe, and then we'll get to the front, and the front just has the toe out. So it'll be good. Now, if you look closely at this, you'll see these threads are like this and like this, right? So this nut gets turned this way, and this nut gets turned this way, kind of up at the top to loosen the lock nuts. One side's standard thread, one side's reverse thread. So they turn the same way to loosen and tighten, from my perspective. Now I want to go out, so I don't have to worry about that. I just got to turn this one. Oh, it's an 18. I thought it was a 19. I want to go this way. I'm gonna have to get an 18. I was hoping it would move. I wouldn't go back to my box. Oh, you turkey. Could have just tugged a little harder, probably would have went. Oh, this is the camber primary, I believe. So I'm gonna want to go shorter now that I'm thinking more. I'm gonna turn this backwards or towards me at the top to bring the bottom of the wheel in. And it's going to change the toe to, like it says, primary. So you'll see up there, you'll see the toe changing as well. So this will go overboard a little bit. I'm going to go all the way to get the camber as close to center as I can. When I do the toe, it's going to undo some of this, probably. So the closer I get it, the better. Now, for the toe, same procedure. Even the same direction. I definitely want to go in on the front now. It's going more positive on the camber too. I don't know why I was expecting it to go the other way. Oh, you know why? It's, I guess because it's below the axle. I was thinking if I made this shorter, it was going to pull it. But calm down, Fast and Furious. But what's happening is it's below the axle, so it's having the opposite effect. It's pulling the bottom of the tire in. All right, let's lock that down. We're good. Sometimes on these, it'll try to roll one of the tie rod ends, so it'll matter. I'll usually try to, if it starts to roll that one, I'll loosen it up and tighten the other one first, and that'll stop it from rolling while you tighten it. Because anytime you have two tie rod ends, you don't want it all bound up. You want them to be kind of centered. Same process on the other side. Ooh, doggy. Perfect. Oh, yeah, let's go. And if you want to see a cool video, I know if you're watching my videos, you're probably into cars at least a little bit. Cletus McFarlane, if you've probably heard him, he's got like 4 or 5 million subscribers. He does a lot of drag racing, which I'm into. If I had the money, I'd have a drag car like I did when I was a kid, a younger man. But he's got a cool video where he built a car he calls Eagle. It's a high-end, basically a pro street Camaro. I don't know what the class would be at the drag strip, but he basically, his first test pass, he ran a 4.0 8th mile, really fast. It's like, I think that engine's capable of like 4,000 horsepower. They're running 40 pounds of boost from the turbos. Cool video though, check it out. I'll put a link in the bottom of the video to it. I thought it was really cool, worth the watch. He's a pretty funny guy, although he's a little weird. You know, it's like awkward, I guess you'd say. But definitely a good dude. And he was thanking his viewers for giving him the ability to have that car and all, which was really cool. Because a lot of YouTube creators don't realize that their success is because of the people that subscribe and watch their videos. Next axle. Ooh, doggy. Of course, I got the steering wheel locked, so a little bit more of a difference on the right than the left, but all those new suspension parts are a big factor. Let's get that knocked out. Same process. This doesn't have a hex on the tie rod end. It has teeth for this tool from the Snappy, I hope. Now you do need to have the steering wheel locked to do the front, but I did that before I even did the back, although you don't have to have it for the back. The lower control arm hits my tool, or the other way around, however you want to look at it. That's a lot of toe end to be centered for a front wheel drive car. They usually are closer to 0. The main reason this is off is probably because the ride height with the new springs is back where it was from the factory. All that's left now is to lock down my jam nuts. Look at that thing. Are you kidding me? That is crazy green. Virtual view. Oh my goodness. You wanted a new car? You came to the right place. I'm gonna take this thing for a drive, verify my wheels straight. I did air up the tires. I didn't film it, but you got to air up the tires when you're doing alignment, because if the car doesn't sit flat, it can affect your measurements and all. But we're done with this one, basically. If any more problems arise, I'll show you that. And then we'll see what else there is to do. The headlights I was supposed to put in, she left. She came in yelling at me that I wasn't working on it yet. I said, I got to get this car off my lift to work on yours. She said, well, why am I waiting? I said, I don't know. She said, I have an emergency, I gotta go. I don't know if that's the one I think I mentioned earlier, her neighbor's paying for it for her. A little old lady paying for someone that's 40 years old to drive an old Mercedes. Kind of makes me sad, but. Print. All right, now I take the steering wheel lock off. If I had it bound up, when I take it off, the wheel will go boonk and relax. And then I know I might have to redo my toe, but this one stayed pretty steady. We're good. All right, Sebring runs great down the road, wheels nice and straight, but they said the customer does want to do the diagnosis He said he's had it at other shops, they couldn't figure out what it was, so he just was living with it. I said, well, we can figure out what it is. What it does is, I think I had you in the car with me yesterday, extended crank, then it runs rough and clears up. So to me, based on my experience, one of the fuel injectors is leaking fuel down into a cylinder, so it drops off the fuel pressure, which causes the extended crank. And then also there's fuel in the manifold, which adds to the extended crank. And then the rough running is that cylinder trying to burn the fuel, and then it clears up once it does. That's probably what's going on. We're going to try to prove it out. 16-pin connector, automatically search. I'll bring up misfire data. I got the ignition on right now so I can communicate, and it also helped build fuel pressure, which would make the problem worse. And we'll fire it up with the misfire data up. I'm hoping it's in here for this car. I think it is. If we see which cylinder is misfiring, we won't have to pull all the spark plugs. We could just pull that one out. If it's wet with gas, it's got a bad injector. Didn't have any codes yesterday, but we'll try it again. PCM no fault codes. So once we get through that, we'll bring up that data. Look at that thing, no codes. That's nice. The early computerized cars, the modules are a little slower than new cars. That's not the scanner, that's the computer going. Data stream might have the misfires, or there'll be a misfire. I should have looked before I did this, huh? That's all right. I like taking risks. I like living on the edge. System test. Misfire monitor test. Engine must be running to perform this test. The problem is I kind of want to put it on graphing mode to do that. That's a shame. Let's try it anyway. We'll see if we can capture it in time before it starts running good. Oh, you're killing me, bro. 1 and 4. Alright, let's pull out a couple spark plugs and get a look. I was hoping I could have the graphing data up and then crank it, but every manufacturer does things a little differently. This comes out a little black, and we know that injector's probably leaking. I'll pull another plug out to compare it to. You can smell gas on it. Let's pull out another one and see what it looks like in comparison. Original spark plugs, 22 years old. This one didn't show any misfires. That's how I decided which one I wanted to look at. I can also put the borescope in here, and we can see if we can spot the injector leaking down. The engine's not that warm, but I might let it sit about 10 minutes before I shove my camera in there just in case. I don't know if you can see that difference, but this is the cylinder that showed some misfires. This one didn't. But these are original spark plugs too, which is not a good thing. So let's get the camera and let this cool a minute. We'll come back. I'm gonna fire up the Kaiweets camera. And there it is. Here's you guys. Kind of weird, isn't it? I'm gonna go ahead and stick this Kaiweets borescope, and that thing moves. I've done videos on a couple of these now, and they're super handy tools. It's not one of those things you need every day, but boy, I'll tell you what, when you need it, it's super handy to have one. And this is inexpensive. I believe this is under $100. But we'll put a price down below the video right here of what it is at the moment we edit this video, and then there'll be a link in the description to pick them up with a discount. So take a look for that. I want to look for a leaking fuel injector. Sorry about that. And you can do it right here. Piston top. Nice crosshatch on the cylinder still. Sometimes if they don't work correctly, you just reorganize how you have it situated in the hole that you're working in. Now what I really want to do is probably go up towards the valves. I've got the piston down, hoping that the intake valve will be open and I could peek in there behind the intake valve, but it doesn't seem like it's going to want to let me do that. But I can see the cylinder's in really good shape. The piston is a little dark. This engine has a cold misfire and extended crank, which usually indicates a leaking injector. but it's not direct injected, so the injector's not in the cylinder directly like I was hoping. So I put the piston down thinking if the intake was open I could peek in there a little bit, but I can't. So it was a nice try, and it shows you the inside of the cylinder pretty well. You can even look at the condition of the spark plug threads if you want. The camera's really good on this thing. Pretty clear picture, for especially in the price range. Let's see if we can peek in the intake a little bit. I could even unbolt the rail and pull the rail out and see if it's dripping, but I wouldn't get to play with my camera. Look at this gem. Some guy driving around on a bicycle in the parking lot. This is a 2017 Ford Escape. Customer tried to put a starter in himself because it won't start. And after he put the starter in, it still won't start. So we're gonna see why. First thing I'm gonna try is, oh, I heard a click. That tells me bad connection. If it's a loud click, it means probably mechanical damage to an engine kind of thing. If it's a light click, then it means battery, cable, terminal, something like that. There's a whole bunch of guys going back there to see why this guy's on our property looking at cars. No go, bro. You don't come on the property without permission. I don't ride up into your house and start looking in your backyard. Anywho. Oh, this town, man, it's just getting better and better. I'm going to start a GoFundMe so I can move. He's got the wiper cowl off still. He's got the air box and stuff out. And we're trying to find out why it doesn't start. He has been going at it in here, hasn't he? Got all kinds of stuff apart. Let's find out why it's not cranking. Part of me wants to try to turn the motor first. Is there oil in it? Doesn't look that great. A little bit low, but not bad. Nothing to worry about yet. That's very interesting that someone would do all this work themselves, not be able to figure it out, and then bring it back in apart. Because if I find something that has nothing to do with this, he has to pay to have us put it back together. I'm confused. That's not hard to do. All right, we got the Escape pushed into the facility, so I don't have to stand in the sun and get my shiny head all red. The starter makes a little click noise. I turn the crankshaft with a wrench to make sure it's not locked up or anything crazy. Normally, if it was, you'd hear click really hard. It's just going click, click, like it's got a voltage drop problem. So I got the meter out, tested my voltage. Hopefully it's not something simple, since the customer's been working on it a week or two himself, he said, and he couldn't figure it out. That's why he just brought it to us. At least he didn't blame another shop like the guy with the Dodge. He admitted he was working on it, which it's nice to give your mechanic all the information so they know what's really going on. They probably won't make fun of you, at least not in person. They might make a video about it. But that's a chance you got to take when you work on a car yourself. I'm just trying to find, I got the ignition on, so it'll put a little bit of a load, but the best test is going to be to crank it. Well, that's not good. That's like a main fuse or something, I guess. Nothing's passing through it. 12.4 on that side. Nothing on that side. What's on this one? 12.4. So I know this little 80 amp fuse is good, because the bottom of it is 12.4, just the same. But this one's got nothing on it. So I'm wondering if he touched something putting the starter, and maybe it had a bad starter and he touched something and shorted it and blew this fuse. It looks like a fuse to me, at least, right? It could be some kind of relay if it had a third wire or something going to it, or 4 wires, but that's probably just some kind of bad fuse that went bad. Let's put a jump box on here and see if this thing cranks. I just happen to have one right here. The only problem is this jump box might not turn itself on because there's no voltage. And it's also possible that there's a short, and it won't be happy about that either. And you know what I'll do? I'll go over here to the ground post and I'll push boost. I want my positive on here as well, so I know if my jump box is doing something. 16 volts. Oop, I heard a big click that time. Changed from a little one. Probably shut my jump box off or something. Oh no, my cable fell off. Let's try it again. Maybe now my jump box timed out. It's a process. There you go. It needs that fuse. Let me let them know up front. Oh, you want a love rating? I'm gonna say 7. What do you think? I'm assuming it's available. I'm gonna take it off and bring it to them up front, just to make it easier for them to find it. I think this cable holds it on there. That is a heck of a fuse. How many amperes do you think that is? 50? It says DE50. I think that's 150 amps, but who knows? There it is. Let me just put some of this together while they work on talking to the customer. I know I don't need all that out to do that fuse. Katie's looking it up. You got to pop this air filter into the housing on the bottom and make sure it's in this lip back here. Then you got some 8mm screws, and we'll just put this in after since he already took it apart. I normally would take the electrical connector and the clamp off and leave that bolted up, but I think it'll go in just fine like that, as long as I can get to the screw down here, which shouldn't be a problem. I can't put this one in yet though because the fuse is behind it, but I am going to just reassemble it for now, and then we'll drop it in last. Uh-oh. It's in the right place, but it's stripped. Another one of Ford's brilliant ideas. I don't think I've seen a Ford Escape where this was closed correctly yet. I should clarify, when it first came in. It's not hard, it's just another one of the many things we do that's kind of silly. The way they design this kind of stuff, they don't care whether it's hard or not. They'll just pay some poor kid 15 bucks an hour to do it, and then everyone wonders why it got messed up and the mechanic gets blamed. Doesn't make any sense to me, but that's just how it is. It's always been that way, and it always will be, probably. You got a bunch of these here clipper doodles. Look at these things. They're expecting a lot out of that, but they actually work pretty well. Gotta give a little credit where credit's due. If you're gonna build a vehicle like Legos, this is one way to do it successfully. I think that's how these go. It just kind of feels right. But the wiper arms look to be exactly the same left to right. We'll see. Worst that happens is it goes, and I gotta undo it. And we'll see. 15, I think that is. And once I tighten those up, a little plastic cap covers it up. It makes it look like there's nothing holding it on. Tricky little guys. Well, that's not supposed to be like that. Someone broke it. So, I guess we're not worrying about that one too much. I don't advise this unless you know you don't have a shorted cable. And I already know I don't because it started. I'm going to put the cable to the starter with no fuse, so I can move it out of my bay and work on something else. The fuse has to come from Ford only, and that's tomorrow. I am going to keep my tool ready to go while I pull this around in case something does go wrong. I'll be able to zip that off of there real quick. But don't worry, it'll make itself a fuse if it has to. Look at this fine specimen. The pinnacle of American luxury. The Cadillac Escalade. ESV stands for extra special vehicle, something like that. Bill was going to look at this one, but they decided Jimmy will make it work. 2007, 114,930. That's low miles for a 2007. Stability lights coming on. You say it has no drivability problems, but I was helping Bill a little bit over his shoulder. It's got cam timing codes, a P0011. So I was giving him some tips on, and he just said, you know what, you look at it. I printed out some documents, electrical wiring, connector pinouts, things like that. Basically what the P0011 means is When the computer wants to retard the cam timing, like for EGR and a steady cruise on the highway to, you know, for whatever purpose, it can't do it. It wants to retard the timing, it activates the solenoid, but it doesn't see the timing change on the sensor. So it sets that code, puts the stability light on, and say, hey man, you can't have stability control if I can't control the cam timing. Yeah, we definitely got P0011 cam position performance, P0340, he didn't mention that one, cam position sensor circuit, memory seat module codes and other things that aren't really a factor for us, rollover sensor codes, vehicle speed information plausibility failure, system disabled information stored invalid serial data. All these codes mean, and the reason that light's on is because that module's mad that the ECM's upset. It doesn't want to see the ECM sad, and I don't really blame it. Let's go in and look at cam timing data and see what actual and desired looks like and see if there's a difference. Cam position actuator data, cam position variance, cam position sensor angle, desired cam position graph. There's no desired cam position. Doesn't care if there's any cam position at all. It does run good. Might have to drive it. Sometimes the cam sensor, the cam degrees won't change. Probably not changing because it's got codes, but worst case scenario, we'll have to drive it. Let's go out and clear codes. Clear codes. Are you sure? Yep. Stability light goes out. Check engine light goes out. We'll read fault codes, make sure they're gone. Immediately sets cam position sensor circuit code. Try key on, engine off. Clear DTCs. Shouldn't matter with a GM. They technically are smart enough to let you clear codes while it's running. Some vehicles won't. No codes, system normal. That could be because it's not running, it didn't set the code. Check engine light works, but it's not on with those codes. That's interesting. Let's read default code now. Cam position sensor circuit. So something's going on with our cam sensor. Once it sets that code, it's going to stay at 0 and not control the camshaft at all. Cam actuator data, cam position, command, angle, sensor, desired, variance. Oh, look at them all. Graph. Yeah, it's not going to let me even try to do anything and set the code again already. So something's going on with the cam sensor. Let's go back in. Read fault code, verify we got the same codes again. P0340. So we're going to search that one. It shouldn't set the P0011 if it has a P0340. I'm trying to figure out why it's set in both, but it could be the P0011 code was in there before and wasn't cleared out. I'm not really sure. But all these documents are for P0011, and the P0340 is what we get back first, so that's what I'm going to tackle first. I'm not even going to be concerned with this other code till we sort out that one. That's a circuit code, so we definitely want to pursue that first. Wiring diagram time. Alright, let's have another go. I got some wiring diagram for 340 at the PCM, pin 64, blue and white, cam position signal. What you normally would do to that is bring up the data, and you could just put a back probe into that blue and white wire and just touch it to ground momentarily, and you should see in the ECM data, it should think it sees cam timing. Just a way to test the circuit right from the cam sensor, but the connector wasn't quite seated all the way, so that's why it was set in that code. So we're going to make sure the code's gone. We'll start it up again. Now it starts up faster and all that kind of cool stuff. We'll see if we get cam data now. Command, variance, sensor, angle. What's that noise? RPM. Desired 12.6. Variance 12.6. Whoop. Interesting. Let's see if we got any new codes. No codes. Alright. I don't know why it's mad. It's mad. That's okay. We're going to unsad it. Cam position actuator. Let's do this. I want to do cam variance, cam sensor, desired cam. I'm going to trim down the data so we have less of it. Let's get it. Cam. Okay. Thank you. Let's do this. Combine. I want them all in there. Now what I'm looking at is the 0, the blue that says 0. It's supposed to be where the gold line is. It wants it to follow this gold line. So the blue line and the gold line are supposed to match, but they don't. Basically, the cam timing solenoid is supposed to retard the cam timing because it's normally advanced. The cam doesn't really advance it. The cam can retard it or let it go back to advanced where it normally is, which I believe is about 8.5 degrees advanced, and it can go 22, 23 degrees retarded. So since these two lines are supposed to match, that is not a good thing. When it's at idle, it doesn't adjust cam timing because it would idle rough if it retarded the timing. When you bring up engine speed, then it takes control again. You'll see the number jump up, the gold one. The variance at 10.6 is the purple line. That follows the gold line. The reason the purple and gold line agree is because the blue line, which is the actual cam timing, isn't changing with them. So if the blue and the gold were working correctly and doing what they're supposed to, then the purple one would not be following them, if that makes sense. Because one is how much variance or discrepancy there is. Blue is actually where it is, gold is where it wants it. So I hope I'm explaining that clearly. But so we need to find out why it is not following the desired cam timing and changing the cam timing at all. So it looks to me like the actuator solenoid is not doing anything. So I do believe I already printed a diagram for that. This is the theory of operation. I shouldn't even say theory. This is a description of operation. At park, it's 8.5 degrees before top dead center or advanced, and fully retarded is 22.5 after top dead center. About a 30-degree swing, roughly. That's cam timing too. At the crankshaft, it's double, since the crankshaft spins at twice the camshaft speed, right? Now what I can do is, next, I've printed out, I got my codes back. I've printed out my ECM connector, pin 16 and pin 52. I want to see 5 to 9 ohms. So what I can do is go to my PCM, find that connector, find those two wires, and back probe. I should have 5 to 9 ohms. If I don't, there's a broken wire or the solenoid itself is bad. And I think on this it's under the intake manifold. It's been so long since I messed with one of these, they never break. So just kidding. Everything breaks. I might have discussed that once or twice before. That's what we're going to do next. Go find that PCM connector, that rascal. It's getting late in the day, but we still got some time. Purple and tan, 16 and 52. And connector C2 is the bottom, C1 is the top. So I'm going to jump out on the edge right here and say this purple wire right here is 1. And what color was the other one? Tan is 52. That should be somewhere in the middle on the bottom. Sometimes you gotta dance. Well, she'll show herself. I think it's that one right there, although that looks more brown than tan. That's not going to deter me though. Let's get a very small back probe that's nice and genteel, and we'll put it in on those two wires till we just get contact. Let's see if we have 5 to 9 what we call Omaroonies in the business. And then we'll know, well, it's down here in the timing cover. So if we don't have the correct resistance, then we know a wire somewhere around here, down there, or the solenoid actuator is bad. Purple and tan, no Piesta resistance, but I know my meter's working, and I got open circuit at the solenoid or a wire going to it. All right, now we got to get to pull the water pump off.
I can get it unplugged. I can get you access to it. Yeah.
Well, so I want to check it right at the sensor, the actuator, and see how much resistance is right.
If you unplug it, you can access the pins.
Okay, yeah. From the side.
Yeah, you can sneak up in there.
Yeah.
So you unplugged it at the computer, and you said it was supposed to have.
It's supposed to have 5 to 9 ohms at the PCM connector, and it's open. So that means either the actuator is open circuit or a wire is broken in between. So it's open right now. Like right now, these two connectors are out in the air and it's open. But if I touch them together, I get a connection. And if I had any resistance, I hear that beep, and the meter should read 5 to 9 ohms. But there's nothing there. So
okay, so you're saying that you were testing it going to the computer, not from.
I'm testing the whole circuit.
Yeah, I know,
Right
but
at
just
the
now.
computer. So yeah, that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see what the computer sees, and I verified that it's not getting a signal, because it's possible the computer could be bad too. So now I've eliminated that. I know it's in the wiring or that actuator. So with the engine cool in the morning, we'll pull this water pump off. He's saying we can get to it, so maybe we'll try that.
If you want to
Although it's a little hot.
get it racked, and I'll get my hands up under there.
Put this back together first when we do that. You don't want to pinch any wires. That just snaps that way. This snaps this way.
Yeah, I was thinking what you were doing. I was thinking it the other way.
Yeah, that's what the computer's going to look at. That's it down there. That's what we call in the business a rascal. A little rascal. I'm going to wait till this thing... Uh-oh, we're closing. I'm going to wait till this thing cools off in the morning. I think the way I'm going to do it is to take that water pump off, because that's the best way to get a good look at what's going on. Make sure I get good contact so my readings are accurate. And I'll be in there to be able to fix wiring or to fix the actuator, whichever one it needs. So we'll do that tomorrow. Thanks for watching, guys. Torque the like button before you head out. Hope I see you in the next one, because you're awesome.